My fiancé's coworker sent flirty emails all week, so I showed up at their team meeting pretending to be delivering lunch. I handed her a sandwich box with a note on top that read, "Enjoy your dish, he's served cold now," and watched her turn red. My name's Becca, and I'm a 34-year-old graphic designer living in Austin, Texas. I've been with my fiancé, Nate, 36, for 5 years. We got engaged last summer, and I thought we had the kind of relationship that would make other couples jealous. We were that annoying couple who always made time for date nights, left cute little notes for each other, and even did the Sunday crossword together. But over the last few months, something started to feel off. At first, I brushed it off as wedding stress, between planning the guest list, figuring out venues, and dealing with my mom, who has a Pinterest board for every aspect of my wedding. I thought maybe I was just imagining things. But then Nate started acting weird. He's a software engineer for a tech company in downtown Austin. His team has been working on some big project lately, which means late nights, weekend work, and a lot of team meetings. I didn't mind at first, everyone has busy seasons at work. But Nate started keeping his phone locked, acting jumpy whenever I'd walk into the room while he was on his laptop, and getting defensive when I'd ask him about work. That's when I decided to trust my gut and do a little digging. I'm not proud of this, but I went through Nate's email. Before anyone comes for me, let me just say, I don't make a habit of snooping. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, and I needed proof. Sure enough, it didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There were a bunch of emails between Nate and a woman named Savannah. She was on his project team, and while most of the emails were work-related, there were quite a few that made my stomach turn. Here are a few gems. You're such a lifesaver, Nate. I don't know what I'd do without you. Smiling face with smiling eyes, that shirt you wore yesterday? 10 out of 10. You have great taste. Winking face, don't let Becca work you too hard this weekend, you deserve a break. Maybe we can grab coffee and brainstorm instead? Coffee and brainstorm my ass. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she's just one of those overly friendly people who doesn't realize she's crossing boundaries. But then I found the email that sealed her fate. Lunch was so fun yesterday. We should do it again soon. Maybe we can make it a regular thing? What Becca doesn't know won't hurt her. Face blowing a kiss, I saw red. I didn't confront Nate right away. I wanted to see if he'd come clean on his own. For the next week, I kept an eye on his emails and his behavior. Sure enough, he kept getting flirty messages from Savannah, and he didn't once shut her down. That's when I decided it was time for a little pro-revenge. Nate's team has a standing meeting every Friday at noon in one of the conference rooms at his office. I'd been to his office a few times for holiday parties and happy hours, so I knew the layout pretty well. I also knew that his company often ordered catered lunches for team meetings. So, I came up with a plan. On Thursday night, I went to my favorite sandwich shop and ordered a variety of boxed lunches for delivery. But instead of having them delivered, I told the shop I'd pick them up myself. I also made a little addition to one of the boxes. The next day, I got up early, got dressed in my friendly delivery driver disguise, a baseball cap, a plain t-shirt, and jeans, and drove to the sandwich shop to pick up the order. I showed up at Nate's office right on time. I walked in confidently, carrying the stack of sandwich boxes, and told the receptionist I was there to deliver lunch for Nate's team. She waved me through without a second glance. When I got to the conference room, I knocked on the door and poked my head inside. Nate was sitting at the table with his laptop open, and Savannah was sitting right next to him. They both looked up when I walked in. Lunch delivery, I said cheerfully, setting the boxes on the table. Nate looked confused. Becca? What are you doing here? Oh, I just wanted to do something nice for your team, I said sweetly. You've been working so hard lately. I figured you could all use a treat. I handed out the boxes one by one, saving Savannah's for last. When I handed it to her, I made sure to flash her my most dazzling smile. Enjoy your dish, I said, my voice dripping with sugar. He's served cold now. She gave me a confused look, but as soon as she opened the box and saw the note I'd taped to the top, her face turned bright red. The note read, Savannah, hope you enjoy this sandwich. It's the only thing you'll be sharing with Nate from now on. P.S. I've attached a few of your greatest hits for your reference. Underneath the note, I'd included printouts of her flirty emails, neatly folded and tucked into a plastic baggie. The room went dead silent. Nate looked like he wanted to crawl under the table, and Savannah looked like she was about to cry. One of their co-workers let out a low whistle and muttered, "Damn." I didn't stick around to see the rest. I turned on my heel and walked out of the conference room with my head held high. When I got home, Nate was already there, waiting for me. He tried to explain himself, saying that Savannah was just a flirt and that nothing had ever happened between them. But I told him that if he couldn't respect our relationship enough to set boundaries, then I didn't want to marry him. Long story short, the wedding is off, and I'm keeping the ring. I've already started looking for a new apartment, and I'm planning to treat myself to a nice solo trip once everything's settled. As for Savannah, I heard through the grapevine that she's been transferred to a different project team. Apparently, her reputation took quite a hit after that little stunt. Moral of the story: if you're going to mess with someone's relationship, make sure their partner isn't a petty genius with access to a sandwich shop. My name is Becca, I'm 34, and I live in Austin, Texas. I've been with my fiancé, Nate, for 5 years. We got engaged about 6 months ago, and I honestly thought we were solid. Like, we were that couple everyone envied. We laughed at the same dumb jokes, shared a love for tacos, and even managed to survive a year of living together during COVID without killing each other. I thought we were unshakable. Lately, though, I noticed some cracks. Nate's a software engineer, and his team has been working on a big project for months now. At first, I didn't think anything of it. He'd stay late at the office or work weekends, but that's normal for his job. The tech world's brutal. But then he started getting weird. He suddenly set a password on his phone, a phone that, up until a few months ago, I could grab to check the weather or play music without a second thought. He'd always been open about sharing his phone, but now it felt like he was guarding the nuclear codes. When I'd walk into the room, he'd slam his laptop shut or quickly change tabs. If I asked him about work, he'd give me vague answers, like, "Oh, you wouldn't understand," or, "just boring tech stuff." Nate's never been secretive before, so this threw me off. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was wedding stress. We'd been arguing a little more than usual about the guest list and my mom's habit of inserting herself into everything. But deep down, I felt like something else was going on. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I've learned to trust my gut. And my gut was screaming at me. I'll admit it, I snooped. I know it's not the healthiest move, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Nate had left his laptop open one night when he went to shower, and curiosity got the better of me. I opened his email, fully expecting to feel guilty afterward. Instead, I felt sick. There was a thread at the top of his inbox with someone named Savannah. I recognized her name because he'd mentioned her before. She's on his project team, and from what Nate told me, she's been pulling a lot of late nights with him to meet deadlines. I didn't think much of it until I saw the tone of their emails. At first, it was subtle. Stuff like, "Thanks for staying late with me tonight, Nate. You're seriously the best. Smiling face with smiling eyes, I love how you always know the right solution. You're a genius." Winking face, okay, fine. Some people are just overly friendly. But as I kept reading, it got worse. "That shirt you wore yesterday? OMG. October 10th. You have great style. Lunch today was so fun. We should make it a regular thing. Maybe keep it our little secret?" Our little secret. That's when I started shaking. But the real kicker came when I found this gem: what Becca doesn't know won't hurt her. Face blowing a kiss, I swear, I almost threw his laptop across the room. I didn't confront Nate right away. I wanted to make sure I wasn't jumping to conclusions. Over the next week, I kept my eyes and ears open. Nate would come home late, smelling like cologne that wasn't his. He'd claim he had a quick lunch with coworkers, but his card statements showed charges at nicer restaurants, the kind you don't hit up for a casual work break. And Savannah? She kept emailing him. Every day, like clockwork. The worst part? Nate never shut her down. He didn't reciprocate her flirty tone, at least not in the emails, but he didn't stop her either. He didn't tell her she was crossing a line. He didn't tell her to stop talking about me like I was some obstacle in their way. It felt like a betrayal by omission. That's when I decided I wasn't going to sit back and let this happen. Nate's team has a standing meeting every Friday at noon in one of the conference rooms at his office. They usually order catering, and I figured I could use that to my advantage. On Thursday night, I went to our favorite sandwich shop and placed a big order for pickup. I chose an assortment of sandwiches, chips, and cookies, enough to feed the whole team. But I had a little extra surprise planned for Savannah. I wrote her a note and taped it to the top of her sandwich box. It read, "Savannah, enjoy your sandwich. It's the only thing you'll be sharing with Nate from now on. P.S. I've included some light reading for you, your greatest hits." I printed out all of her flirty emails, folded them neatly, and slid them into a plastic baggie. Then I tucked the baggie into her box, right next to the sandwich. The next morning, I got dressed in jeans, a plain t-shirt, and a baseball cap to look the part of a delivery person. I picked up the sandwich order, loaded it into my car, and drove to Nate's office. I walked into the office like I belonged there. The receptionist didn't even blink when I said I was there to deliver lunch for Nate's team. She waved me through, and I headed straight for the conference room. When I knocked on the door, Nate was mid-sentence, presenting something on his laptop. He froze when he saw me. "Lunch delivery," I said, smiling as I set the boxes on the table. Nate looked stunned. "Becca? What are you doing here?" "Oh, I just wanted to do something nice for your team," I said, keeping my voice sweet. "You've all been working so hard lately." I started handing out the boxes one by one, saving Savannah's for last. She was sitting right next to Nate, looking every bit the picture of fake innocence. When I handed her the box, I made sure to lock eyes with her and smile. "This one's special," I said. She looked confused but thanked me anyway. As soon as she opened the box and saw the note, her face went pale. She quickly closed the lid, but it was too late. One of her coworkers had already noticed and asked, "What's that?" The room went dead silent. Nate looked like he wanted to disappear. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Savannah was holding the box like it might explode, her knuckles white as she gripped it. Her lips were pressed together, but her eyes darted nervously to Nate. Nate, for his part, looked like he had just been caught red-handed robbing a bank. His face was pale, his mouth opened and closed like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. One of Nate's co-workers, an older guy with salt and pepper hair and the kind of face that said he lived for workplace drama, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "Well," he said slowly, "I don't know what's in that box, but it looks like it's not just a sandwich." That was when Savannah snapped. She stood up so fast that her chair screeched against the floor, clutching the box to her chest like it was some kind of lifeline. Her voice came out shaky but loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is insane. Who even does something like this?" she shouted. "Oh, I don't know," I said, my voice calm but dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe the fiancé of the guy you've been throwing yourself at for weeks?" Gasps rippled through the room. A younger woman sitting near the door looked up from her phone, her eyes wide as she realized what was going on. Savannah whipped her head toward Nate. "Are you seriously going to let her talk to me like this?" Nate finally found his voice, but he made a fatal mistake. He turned to me instead of Savannah. "Becca, can we talk about this somewhere private?" he asked, his tone low and pleading. I laughed. Not a little chuckle, but a full-on, incredulous laugh. "Oh, now you want to talk. Funny how you didn't feel like talking when she was emailing you about your little secret." He winced, and I could see the panic in his eyes. "It's not what it looks like, I swear." Savannah, emboldened by his hesitation, crossed her arms and glared at me. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. Nate and I are just friends. Nothing's happened between us." "Right," I shot back. "Because all my fiancés, just friends, tell him how great he looks, send him winky face emojis, and suggest keeping things from me. Totally normal friendship behavior." Savannah's face turned bright red, and for a second, I thought she might cry. But instead, she turned to Nate and hissed, "Are you seriously not going to defend me right now?" Before Nate could answer, the door to the conference room opened. Everyone turned to see a tall woman in a navy blazer standing in the doorway. Her badge read Elizabeth Morales, Director of Product Development. She surveyed the room, her sharp eyes narrowing as they landed on Savannah, who was still clutching the box like it was her last shred of dignity. "What's going on here?" Elizabeth asked, her voice calm but authoritative. No one answered right away. Savannah looked like she wanted to disappear, Nate looked like he was going to throw up, and the rest of the team was too busy pretending to check their emails. I decided to take the lead. "Hi, Elizabeth, right? I'm Nate's fiancé. I was just dropping off lunch for the team when I found out Savannah here has been sending my fiancé, let's call them inappropriate emails." Elizabeth's expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. She turned to Nate, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Nate," she said sharply, "is this true?" He stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's not true." Savannah blurted out, her voice shrill. "She's just jealous because Nate and I work closely together. She's twisting things to make me look bad." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? Because I have printed copies of every email you sent him. Would you like me to read them out loud for everyone here?" Savannah's mouth snapped shut. Elizabeth held up a hand, silencing the room. We'll deal with this later. For now, everyone, back to work. As the team shuffled out of the conference room, casting curious glances over their shoulders, Elizabeth gestured for Nate, Savannah, and me to stay. The door closed behind the last person, and the room was suddenly very small and very quiet. Elizabeth crossed her arms and looked at Nate. You've been a valued member of this team for years, Nate, she said, her voice cold and even. But I have zero tolerance for inappropriate workplace behavior. Care to explain what's going on? It's not like that, Nate mumbled. Savannah and I are just co-workers. She took things out of context. Out of context? I snapped. So when she said, what Becca doesn't know won't hurt her, what context was that in? A team-building exercise? Savannah finally spoke up, her voice shaking. I didn't mean it like that. It was just a joke. Funny, I said, glaring at her. Because I'm not laughing. Elizabeth pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed. This is completely unacceptable. Savannah, I need you to step out while I speak to Nate. Savannah looked like she wanted to argue, but one glance at Elizabeth's no-nonsense expression shut her up. She grabbed her bag and practically ran out of the room, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. Once she was gone, Elizabeth turned her attention back to Nate. Nate, I'll be blunt. This isn't just about your personal life, this reflects on the entire team. If I find out you've been engaging in any inappropriate behavior with a subordinate, there will be consequences. Nate nodded quickly, his eyes glued to the floor. I stood there, arms crossed, watching him squirm. Part of me wanted to yell, but another part of me wanted to let him dig his own grave. Elizabeth sighed. You two clearly have things to work out. Nate, take the rest of the day off. And Becca? She looked at me, her expression softening slightly. If you'd like to file a formal complaint, my door is open. Thanks, I said, not breaking eye contact with Nate. As Elizabeth walked out, Nate finally looked at me. Becca, I can explain, you're going to want to save it, I said, cutting him off. Because when I'm done, you're not going to have anything left to say. Nate followed me out of the conference room, practically tripping over his own feet to keep up. I walked straight past the receptionist, out the front doors, and into the parking lot. I didn't say a word. Becca, please, just hear me out. Nate begged, grabbing my arm as I reached my car. I turned around slowly, my face calm even though my insides were boiling. You've got 30 seconds, I said. He let out a shaky breath, running a hand through his hair. It's not what you think, I swear. She's been coming on to me, and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to make things awkward at work, so I just ignored it. I never flirted back. I never touched her. I love you, Becca. I tilted my head, pretending to think about it. Okay, I said, my voice steady. So you're telling me you didn't shut her down because you didn't want to make things awkward. But what about the lunches? The flirty emails? And the fact that you never told me any of this was happening? You didn't think that would make things awkward? His mouth opened, but no words came out. That's what I thought, I said, unlocking my car door. Wait, he said, his voice cracking. What are you going to do? I slid into the driver's seat and gave him a cold smile. Oh, don't worry, Nate. I'll handle it. Then I drove off, leaving him standing in the parking lot like an idiot.